What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with that being said, I want to speak on some recent comments that Richard Sherman made about Russell Wilson. Not only Richard Sherman, I think it was Tony Gonzalez. They was on a NFL pregame show, and they made some comments about uh, Russell Wilson that I want to I want to comment on. I thought kind of like I thought they were a little bit hard on him. Uh, but everybody already knew that Richard Sherman he really don't like Russell Wilson at all. And so every chance, every opportunity Richard Sherman get, he definitely want to get on him. But with that being said, I want to play these comments from Richard Sherman and Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez is the first one on here. So you're going to hear Tony Gonzalez first. Then you're going to hear Richard Sherman talking about Russell Wilson. So here we go.
This clip of Malik Neighbor saying that the quarterback last year with Daniel Jones wasn't the problem. So when you look at this Russell Wilson situation, Tony, he says he's got a lot more football left in him. Okay, he's going to say all the right things. Do you think we've seen the last of Russell Wilson?
Honestly, I hope we have. And I say that because I just looking at him and his career, his legacy, like you talked about, if ever there was somebody who played himself out of a Hall of Fame, it's Russell Wilson.
Really?
And I say that because look at what's happened ever since he left Seattle. When he was in Seattle, he was the man. He was making these good plays. He won a Super Bowl, went to two of them. But as soon as he left there, he went to Denver, signed that big old deal. They paid him $39 million to leave. He goes to Pittsburgh, plays there 1 year. There he's out of there. Now he goes here and has 3 games. I just don't know if it's going to get any better. And I don't want to see him on a sideline holding a clipboard.
So you're very much under the "what have you done for me lately" thing, in taking away the first, decade of his career.
Absolutely, and I just don't think he's done himself any favor since he left Seattle. And I don't know how's it going to get better. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
All right, so that was Tony Gonzalez right there, right? Talking about, Tony Gonzalez said that they should really disregard the first 10 years of Russell Wilson's career. Now, I'm not a Russell Wilson fan. I mean, I think he's okay. I like them. I've been following him since he played in college. I know he played at NC State first, then he transferred to Wisconsin. And from Wisconsin, he was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, right? And then everybody know, how his first 10 years went in Seattle. They went to 2 Super Bowls, won 1 Super Bowl. I think he went to like 9 Pro Bowls or something like that. So he has, he put the work in already. He already has a Hall of Fame type of career, right? Now, since he has left the Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson, his first stop with the Denver Broncos didn't go as planned. His second stop, like Tony Gonzalez said, in Denver didn't go as planned. Now he's with the Giants, and that's not looking good at all. But to me, that still don't erase what Russell Wilson has done his first 10 years when he was with Seattle. So if that's worthy enough to get him in there, his first 10 years, then that should stand. I think that, there have been other quarterbacks who have left teams and went to other teams late in their career. Like you had Joe Montana. He won 4 Super Bowls with the San Francisco 49ers. Then he went to the Chiefs. And things didn't really pan out too good there, but nobody was talking about, Joe Montana wasn't Super Bowl worthy. You had Joe Namath, who won a Super Bowl with the Jets back in the day. He wound, I think at the end of his career, Joe Montana wound up going to the Los Angeles Rams. Nobody was talking about, Joe Montana. I mean, what's his name? Broadway, Joe Namath. I'm sorry. Joe Namath was with the Jets, won a Super Bowl, and nobody was saying, Joe Namath played his way out. Because when Joe Namath went to the Rams, he basically was just a shell of himself. He wasn't the same Broadway Joe he was when he was in New York. But nobody, said that he wasn't worthy. Who else? Johnny Unitas played for the Baltimore Colts, wound up going to the Chargers, So quarterbacks leave at the end of their career and they go to teams. And what they have done, like the equity that he already has built up is not really in my, it can't be washed away by what he do at the end of his career. Because if you think about it, say if his first 10 years, he was mediocre, and then he went to a Super Bowl or two at the end of his career, say one Super Bowl, people would be saying that, he resurrected his career. So, so he resurrected his career. So, but you can't count, like I said, you can't take what he did off the table already, in my opinion. But let me listen to what Richard Sherman says, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna make some more comments on top of what Richard Sherman says about him.
I think you got to judge his career off when the Legion of Boom was there. He had a legendary defense, an all-time defense, and how much success he had. And then without that legendary defense, the success he had. Without that legendary defense, he's been 4-11, 7-8, 0-3 to start with the Giants. He was a winning football player in Seattle, and people said, hey, winning is football player, all this good stuff, all these accolades, and now you get to go on your own and you get to prove, hey, I'm this great quarterback. I'm this guy that's going to be dominant, and it just hasn't worked out that way.
All right, so that's Richard Sherman. And what I want to say about Richard Sherman, I think it's Richard Sherman over the years has made it clear that he's not really a big fan of Russell Wilson. So some of his comments probably is coming from a more personal take, because again, I just feel like what he did his first 10 years in the league, they've been to 2 Super Bowls, and going to a Super Bowl is a team, like that's a team accomplishment. It's not just Richard Sherman, it's not just Russell Wilson, Cam Chancellor, and all those other guys, took part in that Super Bowl. So everybody take part in those victories that they had. So when you say that he went to another team and they wasn't, he wasn't able to have the same success on another team, he also didn't have Richard Sherman with him. He also didn't have Cam Chancellor and all the other great players that he had when he was in Seattle. So you really can't judge him on that, because that's a whole different circumstance, whole different set of other players that he played with. And some things really Richard Sherman said before in past interviews, like the fact that, he was Russell Wilson was a diva. Like Russell Wilson wanted his own locker room, not his own locker room. He wanted his own office, upstairs with management. He wasn't really, he didn't really talk to the other players on the team. He was more so a standoffish kind of guy. And, they got the feeling, and he probably did put it out there like he was a little bit better than them. Right. And so not only Richard Sherman said that, but other players have said it. Like, what's the guy name? Beast Mode. I forgot Beast Mode real name, but Beast Mode even said the same thing, right? That he was like that. But Beast Mode also said that he didn't really hold all that against him. He just overlooked that. But not Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman's like, every chance he get to drag Russell Wilson, he gonna do that. And that's his prerogative. If that's what he want to do, he can do that. But I don't think, unfortunately for Russell Wilson, like he'll be able to keep Russell Wilson out of the Hall of Fame, because like I said, the work that he put in is the work that he put in. That's what he earned, so you can't take away what he has already earned. If he wasn't a good teammate, you can say that he wasn't a good teammate. He was if you thought he was cornball, then you can say that too. If he was a diva, you could say all that stuff, but you can't say that, he didn't help y'all get to 2 Super Bowls. You can't say that he didn't make like 9 Pro Bowl appearances or any of the other things that he was able to accomplish while he was at Seattle. Those are the things that you can't take away from him. So I just want Richard Sherman and the guys who play with him, just be honest. If y'all think he was a diva, just say that, but don't try to penalize him for being a diva. No more than what you can't really take anything away from him the way what he earned, because he earned that. And so that's my take on the, on the situation with Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman, really didn't dig Russell Wilson at all, and it's evident every time he give an interview or he get the opportunity to speak on Russell Wilson, he lets it be known that he was not a fan. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, I'll check you all out in the next video.